The Nature and Value of Universal History. Friedrich Schiller. Who is Friedrich Schiller? A German dramatist, poet, and historian, was born at Marbach, Württemberg on November 10, 1759. His father was Johann Caspar Scheller, an army captain in the service of Duke Karl Eugen of Württemberg. His mother is Elizabeth Dorothea, the daughter of Marbach innkeeper, ranked as one of the greatest German literary figure, a founder of modern German literature. Between 1791 and 1796, he authored a range of theoretical works that are both sophisticated and original. These writings primarily concern aesthetics, but they stake out notable positions on ethics, metaphysics, ontology, and political theory as well. In his relatively short life, he authored an extraordinary series of dramas, including The Robins, Maria Stuart, and the trilogy Wallenstein. He was also a prodigious poet, composing perhaps most famously the Ode to Joy, featured in the culmination of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and enshrined, some 2 centuries later, in the European hymn. In part through his celebrated friendship with the Goethe, he edited epoch-defining literary journals and exerted lasting influence on German stage production. He is sometimes referred to as the German Shakespeare. He is still among the most widely produced German plays both in Germany and international stage. Schiller and Kant. Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804. Idea for a Universal History from a Cosmopolitan Point of View, 1784. On the Aesthetic Education of Man, inspired by Kant, develops further theory of the disinterested character of the aesthetic. Schiller argues that through this disinterested quality, experience becomes the true vehicle of moral and political education, providing human being with both self-identity that is fulfillment and institutions that enable them to flourish. What is man before beauty cajoles from him a delight in the things for their own sake, or the serenity of form tempers the savagery of life, a monotonous fount of ends, a constant vacillation of judgment, self-seeking, and yet without self-lawless, yet without freedom, a slave and had no role. Schiller renounced Kant's The Critique of Judgment, introduced the first full account of aesthetic experience as distinct exercise of rational mentality. Principal ingredients of Kant's work. First, antimony of taste, the emphasis on the free play of imagination. Central object of aesthetic interest is not art but nature. Theory of aesthetic experience as both free concepts and disinterested. Moral and spiritual significance of aesthetic experience, which open to us transcendental points of view of the world of nature, enables us to the world as purposive but without purpose. Universal history. A broad investigation of world history with the purpose of working out how the world is came to be the way it is. This is the way Schiller means of universal history. An interpretation of human history as purposeful of evolution towards his own enlightened era. Schiller then goes on to describe how the world character is that is his own era, and even in the English translation, his historical is his poetry. These descriptions of contemporary society as Schiller's starting point for his invasion of world history. The question is for how this wonderful development came about. Clearly because of man's rationality, humility, and love of peace, but more despite human irrationality and egoism. For example, the opinions surrounded by embarrassing barbarians and savage tribes, oppressed by slavery, stupidity, and superstition, miserable in their lawless freedom, attacking anything novel and strange. The way Caesar and Tacitus found the German 1800 years previously. Mirror the last beginning of the European civilization. Yielded up the freedom of the beast of prey in order to preserve the nobler freedom of man. The question is for how this wonderful development came about. Clearly because of man's rationality, humility, and the love of peace, but more despite human irrationality and egoism. Schiller want is how can man based on egoistic design leads to a glorious state. The three steps of research programs of Schiller. One must view history in light of contemporary society, tracing and mapping past events. It is the current situation which determines the significance of the past events. For example, Christianity in their very humble beginning and the emergence of Christianity as historically significant. Second, the lack of historical sources compared to the actual abandoned historical event necessitates philosophical understanding in order to join the fragments of history into a rationally coherent whole. This is to be achieved with, with the use of laws of physical and human nature. Finally, the goal of his procedure is to discover what contents called the plan of nature, meaning to finally grasp how the world is constituted. Schiller aims to design historical codes to further promote the progress of society. In conclusion, according to him, the facts of history had to be connected through philosophical reasoning. This would eventually lead to the discovery of the plan of nature. The central object of aesthetic interest is not art but nature. Thank you.